Welcome to Hoystory On Air, Season 1, Episode 17. Got a lot to talk about today. Um, some of it you may like, some of it you won't like. If you're not a big, if you think I'm a MAGA guy, I'm not. And we will prove that here with our first story today. This is from Kegel Cartoons. Pardons $5 million. The pardoner is in. Uh, Yeah, it's the old Lucy and the cartoon thing. I don't know what the heck's going on with him. Seriously. Um, I wasn't a big fan of the January 6th pardons because they were so sweeping. I thought there were people there who uh, were over prosecuted for what they did. They were sentenced to way too much time, and part of this whole thing is the process is the penalty as well. Um, so Not a big fan of the January 6 pardons. Some of them should have been commutations. Some of them shouldn't have gotten anything at all. But I can kind of understand it, considering what he's been through. He was targeted. The Most of the charges, these trumped up, no pun intended, prosecutions against him for fraud in a case where no one lost any money, for paying off, for a state court trying to enforce uh, federal election laws. It's never happened before, and it's usually the feds come down and say, no, you're not doing that. That's our purview. But anything to get him. So I can understand him wanting to use this power. The problem is we're getting to the point now where he's abusing it. There's a history of this. This is Biden's auto pen, writing out a pardon there. I used AI to create that. See, I know how to use AI. But Biden, instead of targeting, okay, I'm giving pardons to these specific people, just said, anyone who's been convicted of simple marijuana possession, attempted simple possession of marijuana, or use of marijuana, we're just going to pardon them all. I got a better idea. Why don't you pass a law taking those offenses off the books and then do it? Because this was just show. I mean, we've had pardon problems. I mean, there were people who thought the pardon of Gerald Ford, or Gerald Ford's pardon of Nixon, was a bad idea. That one I think I can live with, because that just kind of shut the door on all that. The country was able to move on. Bill Clinton famously pardoned financier Mark Rich, who was a fugitive. That was a purchased pardon. There's too much of this. It's willy-nilly. The news today was the former president of Honduras has been freed from prison after the Trump pardon. He had been sentenced to 45 years in prison for flooding the United States with cocaine. Over on the right, we've got some quote. This from an Andy McCarthy piece over on National Review. This is the court documents. Hernandez abused his powerful positions and authority in Honduras to facilitate the importation of over 400 tons of cocaine into the U.S. He received millions of dollars of drug money from some of the largest and most violent drug trafficking organizations in Honduras, Mexico, and elsewhere. The people that he was doing this with moved mountains of cocaine, committed acts of violence and murder, and helped turn Honduras into one of the most dangerous countries in the world. And Trump pardoned this guy. Why did he pardon him? Mr. Trump discussed this back in the New York Times article. Discussed the planned pardon with reporters over the weekend in terms similar to those Mr. Hernandez had used in his letter, saying that the people of Honduras really thought he was set up, and it was a terrible thing. He was president of the country, and they basically said he was a drug dealer because he was president of the country, Mr. Trump said. And they said it was a Biden administration setup. I looked at the facts, and I agreed with him. I don't think he looked at the facts. I don't think he does that much work. I don't think he talked to anybody. He didn't. He didn't. I'll put money down on that. It's the previous sentence that's the one that caused Trump to give the pardon. All you have to do is say it's a Biden administration setup. I mean, let's go back to the last one. When did he start doing this? At least 2004. From 2004 up to and including about 2022. He'd been doing this through Trump 1 administration, through the Biden administration, a long time. It wasn't a setup. Guilty of sin. But stroke Trump's ego. And that's not all he's done. This crypto billionaire pardoned. Rumor has it it's because he's doing business with the Trump organization. I believe it probably is happening. Probably one of his kids or something, but there's no reason to pardon that guy. And then he just he commuted David Gentile's sentence, he got a 7-year prison sentence for bilking investors of $1.6 billion. Personally, I think the sentence was a little low. $1.6 billion, you probably ought to go to jail longer. But he'd served less than 2 weeks. Trump commutes his sentence. Why? Probably the same sort of thing. He sees himself in, and what does that say about Trump? He sees himself in these other convictions. There's been discussion about getting rid of the pardon power. They could do that if they wanted to. I mentioned Biden and the marijuana users. I missed an opportunity last year because summer of 2024, when Karine Jean-Pierre was standing at the White House podium, assuring the American people that Joe Biden would not be pardoning his son Hunter on gun charges. It was legal at that point in the United States for these kind of political betting markets. And I knew Hunter Biden was never going to see the inside of a jail cell for a day, a federal prison. It wasn't going to happen. I should have took every last cent I had and put it on a bet on that. Would have paid off. I would have taken money from gullible journalists and Democrats who believed that malarkey. But you see where we get. I want to say it started with Bill Clinton's Mark Rich pardon. And it's just set steadily, politician after politician, president after president, push that barrier a little more. I'm not sure if there are any. I didn't look to see if George W. Bush had done any questionable pardons. I know he should have pardoned Scooter Libby because that was an absolute joke. It wasn't him who gave up the CIA agent's identity, and absolute joke. But the rest of this stuff, it's getting to the point where this was supposed to be used to correct injustices, and now it's not. If there's a case out there that the guy who should have been pardoned, and who Trump should pardon this moment, it's this guy, Patrick Tate Adamakiak. I got no idea. He's an American sailor. He's serving a 20-year sentence. Why? Because the ATF took stuff that he had that didn't work, wasn't designed to work, that he didn't have the parts to make work, and made them weapons. You can still buy on Gunbroker. Question if you want to do this or not. inert RPG-2 rockets for 120, an RPG-7 replica for $400, an inert RPG-2 rocket launcher with a rocket, firing pin, and hard case for $1,200. Spare ammo in our inert heat rockets run $230. They don't require a federal firearm license for the purchase because they aren't firearms. They are not real. They have their internal parts stripped. It's the shell. It's something to decorate your wall with. But what happened? The ATF came after this guy and started putting in parts, started adjusting things, added things, stuff he didn't have, stuff the Adamakiak, whatever, didn't have, and made it so the RPG could shoot a single bullet. Same thing with a Sten submachine gun that's legally a toy and still able to be bought online. They add parts and do this. This should scare the bejesus out of every gun owner. Because especially if you've got a Glock, they got those Glock switches. Those Glock switches are illegal to possess. They turn a Glock that's a semi-automatic handgun into a fully automatic handgun. But if you've got some milling equipment, if you're a blue collar guy or someone who creates tools and stuff, if you've got the tools sitting around, even though you haven't tried to make a Glock switch, if you've got bits of metal around that can be folded and milled and whatnot, the ATF can go and do that, plop that on your perfectly legal Glock, and put you in jail for 20 years for having a machine gun. Because that's what they did to this guy. Taken to its ludicrous conclusion, this was something that was exchanged at a Minnesota gun buyback. That is a working shotgun. What was used to make this shotgun? Let's take a look at it. We've got some plumbing pipe, we've got some duct tape, and we got a piece of wood. I did that here. If I did that here in California, it's a crime. California, everything's a crime. Minnesota, it's not a crime to make your own gun. Even got a serial number on it. Buybacks don't work. 01. He made that, and he was getting paid $250 a shot, I think. Sorry, excuse the pun. But if you've got wood and some steel piping in your house, ATF can come after you. Say you've got an unregistered shotgun. I wouldn't put it past California's DOJ. They got enough problems, but you get some gung-ho prosecutor or somebody in the department who wants to make a name for themselves. They could come after somebody for this. The pardon power, when it first started out in this country, there wasn't much you could pardon. It's a 15-year-old article over from Heritage by Edwin Meese III, the late Edwin Meese III. I think he's dead. He was a trustee from 2017 to 2024. Maybe he's not dead. I don't know. He's old. It's a 15-year-old article. The first Congress enacted the Original Crimes Act in 1790. There were 17 federal crimes. Today, Congress can't even tell you how many there are. Best estimate in 2010, more than 4,500 federal crimes. I guarantee you there's more now. And with that many crimes, many of which don't require the whole guilty mind thing. It's not an intent to do a wrongful act. It's wrongful and illegal because we say so. When it's that wide-ranging, it'd be a good thing to have pardon power. But it's being abused to such a point that we need to do something about it. What we do about it, I don't know. I'm not sure. I'm not sure if it can be curtailed. I'm not sure if you can require, something more than a signature. I'm not sure if you want to require my majority of Congress, or maybe even a minority of Congress, to do that, to make a pardon like that an actual thing. But this has gone off the rails. The man must be stopped, because it's a joke. Our legal system is in a sorry state for a lot of different reasons. One of them is because of what Trump's doing. I'll get into some other reasons why we got problems shortly, but what a mess. We need to do something about the pardon power. The nice thing about, and it'd be nice if this is something that could be bipartisan. It'd be nice if it were. But I suspect that, the next time we have a Democrat, he's going to abuse it the same way. Maybe it gets worse. Maybe it's a little better. I don't know. But we are not electing politicians who have solid moral centers, a sense of right and wrong, and any pride in their in their offices. We shouldn't be doing this thing willy-nilly, and we are. I don't know what the answer is. I'm open to seeing suggestions on what we could do to reform the pardon power. It would probably take a constitutional amendment. The good news about constitutional amendment is the president isn't part of that process. It goes through the House, it goes through the Senate, and it goes to the state legislatures. So we can change it without having to worry about a veto. But you still need 2/3 in each of the houses and 3/4 of the states. So there is work to be done. We need to start talking about it and taking this seriously. Other interesting thing that's happened, and I'm going to give credit to County Highway. It's a print-only publication, $8.50 per issue. It gets mailed to you. Walter Kern, I think one of the editors or sponsors of it. It's an old-fashioned newspaper, but it's kind of magazine-type articles. If I get enough people subscribing to this, I'll subscribe to that. That's probably going to be the first thing once I start getting people on my Substack, hoystory.substack.com. I'm just going to pass the money to other creators so I can read what they write. How frauds swamped Minnesota's social services system on Tim Walz's watch. New York Times article comes out after the election. We're going to point out to you that there's plenty of evidence that a lot of this was known before the election. No one was interested in paying attention. Not Kamala Harris, not the mainstream media. Surprise, surprise. This is the New York Times article, reporting from Minneapolis. Fraud scandal that rattled Minnesota was staggering in its scale and brazenness. Federal prosecutors charged dozens of people with felonies, accusing them of stealing hundreds of millions of dollars from a government program meant to keep children fed during the COVID-19 pandemic. Over the last 5 years, law enforcement officials say fraud took root in pockets of Minnesota's Somali diaspora. 59 people convicted so far. More than $1 billion in taxpayer money has been stolen in the plots they're investigating. That's more than they spend on prisons in Minnesota. Guess what? They don't spend enough on prisons in Minnesota. Governor Tim, and these are the first 6 articles of the piece. Fraud scandal 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The 6th paragraph, we get Governor Tim Walz and fellow Democrats are being asked to explain how so much money was stolen on their watch, providing Republicans who hope to take back the governor's office in 2026 with a powerful line of attack. 6 paragraphs in, Republicans pounce. It's predictable. In 2020, Minnesota Department of Education officials began raising questions about the plausibility of some invoices. You're feeding how many people every day? And then here we go. Feeding Our Future, the nonprofit group that was the largest provider in the pandemic program, and fraudulent, responded with a warning. In an email, the group told the state agency that failing to promptly approve new applicants from minority-owned businesses would result in a lawsuit featuring accusations of racism that would be sprawled across the news. And you know the media would have lapped it up. They would have repeated that stuff unquestionably. Oh, the government's being racist, just like the 1960s in 2020 Minnesota. I don't think so. No, that's not credible, but they would have. Media would have lapped it up. It would have worked. A report by Minnesota's nonpartisan Office of the Legislative Auditor about the lapses that enabled the meals fraud later found that the threat of litigation and of negative press affected how state officials use their regulatory power. That's not necessarily a bad thing. Sometimes the government misbehaves and the media shining a spotlight on it's a good thing. Flip back to those Ammo Land articles about the ATF. More attention on that would be a good thing. But when you're using that to hide your fraud and the government, people who are supposed to be investigating that are so chastened and fearful about it that they don't do their job, that's a problem. Mr. Walz is seeking a third term next year. He's created a task force. And here we go. Money quote, people. The message here in Minnesota, Mr. Walz says, is if you commit a crime, if you commit fraud against public dollars, you are going to go to prison. That's my best kind of Eddie Murphy laugh impression. That may be Horseshack. I'm not sure. It's one of the two. Why do I laugh? I laugh because Hennepin County judge tosses out jury's guilty verdict in $7.2 million home health care fraud case. Jurors tell KARE 11 News their decision wasn't difficult after seeing the evidence of obvious fraud committed by Abtifa Yusuf. Minnesota judges under scrutiny for overturning a $7.2 million fraud conviction, and a couple who were found guilty of misappropriating Medicaid funds to support their lavish lifestyle of fancy cars and designer duds. Charged in June 2024, found guilty in August 2025 after he and his wife were accused of stealing millions from Minnesota's Medicaid program while running a healthcare business out of their home. Yusuf was found guilty of 6 counts of aiding and abetting theft by swindle by a jury, but Judge Sarah West overturned the conviction. Why? Well, apparently she thought there's another explanation. Maybe they didn't do it. She needs to be impeached and removed, or however they do it in Minnesota. She needs to be off the bench. We need to do more of that, by the way. Judges who show poor judgment shouldn't be on the bench. Jurors from the case can't believe the decision. I'm shocked. I'm shocked based off all the evidence that was presented to us and the obvious guilt we saw based off of the said evidence. We didn't take our job lightly. We went through a lot of evidence and discussed a lot, took our time, but we all came to an agreement pretty easily. Minor shocker is Attorney General Keith Ellison, formerly, I think he was head of the DNC, filed an appeal on Monday. That would have been yesterday. Prosecutors are rarely able to appeal an acquittal, but they can in this case since the judgment overturns the will of the jury. Here's hoping, but if that happens in one case in Minnesota, well, I wouldn't try another one of these cases before that same judge. And maybe Tim Walz's promise is ephemeral. Maybe there's not much to it. Getting back to what was known when, this is a Twitter account. They had posted something to Kamala Harris back when she picked Tim Walz, saying, hey, we got a fraud problem here in Minnesota. Not a good idea to pick this guy. Tim Walz is 100% responsible for massive fraud in Minnesota. We let Tim Walz know to fraud early on, hoping for a partnership in stopping fraud, but no, we got the opposite response. Tim Walz systematically retaliated against whistleblowers using monitoring, threats, repression, and did his best to discredit fraud reports. Instead of partnership, we got the full weight of retaliation by Tim Walz, certain DFL members, and an indifferent mainstream media. It's scary, isolating, and left us wondering who we can turn to. In addition to retaliating against whistleblowers, Tim Walz disempowered the Office of Legislative Auditor, allowing agencies to disregard their audit findings and guidance. Media and politicians supporting Tim Walz or the DFL agenda attacked whistleblowers who were trying to raise red flags on fraudulent activities. There's more. Link to this full post will be in the show notes down below. I think Jim Garrity, this isn't in the slide deck, but I read it this morning. Jim Garrity was on he's a National Review columnist. His morning report found that apparently there's the actual office of the governor is a mess. He can't even run his office right. People weren't signing timesheets. That they didn't know where money was going out. They didn't know when they were owed money. They didn't know when they had to pay money. So he can't run his own office, let alone the state. The worst part of it, though, this comes from City Journal. So the Somali community, of whom squad member Ilhan Omar, I married my brother to help him get into the country, representative is from. A lot of this fraud, again, because they said they were going to, accuse you of racism if you don't give us the money, is the Somali community in Minnesota. Like many, I'll say many, it's not uncommon for these sorts of communities to send money to the poor families back home. Well, they were doing that too. And where was that money finding its way to? From City Journal. What happened to all that money? Somali fraud rings have sent huge sums in remittances or money transfers from Minnesota to Somalia. According to reports, an estimated 40% of households in Somalia get remittances from abroad. In 2023 alone, the Somali diaspora sent back $1.7 billion, more than the Somali government's budget for that year. Our investigation reveals for the first time that some of this money has been directed to an even more troubling destination, the al-Qaeda-linked Islamic terror group al-Shabaab. According to multiple law enforcement sources, Minnesota's Somali community has spent untold millions through a network of hawalas, informal clan-based money traders, that have wound up in the coffers of al-Shabaab. I'm not sure how we put those funders in jail, but we need to. The fact that Minnesota taxpayers are a major source of money for an Islamic terror group is a problem. It'd be not. Trump's saying, "Oh, we're going to stop people from coming from Somalia anymore." Well, that should have happened a long time ago. We need to have a serious discussion in this country about who we're letting in, and we need to do a heck of a lot better at assimilation, because you shouldn't have this. We should not be having have large communities where they're sending taxpayer dollars obtained through widespread fraud to terrorists. Something needs to be done. Maybe what Trump's doing on this is a good first step, but we need to be serious about this stuff. Ilhan Omar shouldn't be in Congress. She shouldn't be in America. She should lose her naturalization, She did commit immigration fraud by marrying her brother. She's never, there's plenty of evidence she did that, and her rebuttals to that are usually, you're a racist for saying that, which is not a rebuttal to the charge. Finally today, we got a problem in Great Britain. It's lesser, well, it's Canada, Australia, the other kind of former British colonies, those that still have the Queen of England as their head of state, as opposed to their head of government. Two different things. Something we here in the United States have difficulty kind of understanding, because our head of state and head of government are the same person. It's whoever the president is. For a lot of these former British colonies, that's not the case. The head of state is the Queen, and the head of government is that country's prime minister. It's why, like, the British have Queen Elizabeth on their bills and whatnot, or did. I don't know anymore. Don't care anymore. So this is a guy who visited Florida last summer, and it's him shooting a shotgun. And he went back to England, and he posted on social media, and a 3-month nightmare has ensued. August 24th, officers returned to his home at around 10 p.m. and arrested him. A bail document referred to allegations of possessing a firearm with the intent to cause fear or violence in Florida, as well as a separate allegation of stalking linked to a photograph of a house on his social media. He was held overnight. It looks like it's mostly done. His travails are mostly done. But again, process is the punishment. Cops show up and arrest you. Why? Because you posted a picture of yourself shooting a shotgun in Florida, where, frankly, it's not only illegal, it's generally encouraged. When you go to Florida, you should shoot a shotgun, or an AR-15, or 2. But over in Great Britain, they're going absolutely nuts. The whole right, John Locke, inalienable rights, that sort of thing. No. Great Britain is going to create a better British citizen, at least the white ones, and you're going to like it. For my British friends, 1984 was a cautionary tale, not a how-to guide. What's next? The UK plans to end jury trials for crimes with sentences under 3 years. British Justice Secretary David Lammy, who should be in prison, announced the contentious move on Tuesday as part of an attempt to tackle a years-long backlog in the courts. Well, expand your courts. Do better. It's going to restrict the rights of some defendants to a jury trial in England and Wales, as it seeks to reduce a years-long backlog of cases in the criminal courts. In a statement to Parliament, David Lammy, the Justice Secretary, the Injustice Secretary, said he would create new swift courts for defendants facing a likely prison sentence of 3 years or less, where judges alone would decide their guilt or innocence. This will not end well. Watch the number of crimes that get you 3 years or less to expand mightily. Because that way, you don't have to, the court just has to convince a sycophantic judge. And there's plenty of them. I got more stories. Among other things in Great Britain, police are still, they arrested her again. She was arrested and acquitted one time. She went back and did it again. She prayed silently near a abortion clinic. And so they arrested her because that's a crime. She didn't block the clinic entrance. She was standing a couple 100 feet away. She was standing there, hands in her pockets, eyes closed, and up the cops. Are you praying? Maybe. What's that of your business? I'm thinking up names to call you, horrible police officers. So that's illegal. Then we get this one. Okay. See if I can play this. Police tell gospel singer she cannot sing her songs outside of church grounds. So this was, and I'm going to play the video in a second here. This was an unpaid volunteer police officer who, we have a non-zero number of people who go into law enforcement because they want to use that power and abuse other people. That's just, I mean, YouTube channel, the civil rights lawyer, check it out, Google it, because that's all he posts are people who get in trouble for basically contempt of cop. This is over in Great Britain. This little, I'm trying to think of a nice way to describe her, and I don't think I want to. She doesn't deserve to be described in a nice way. She shouldn't have even a fake badge. Even I take a look and listen.
Religion you're allowed to do anywhere.
No, miss, you're not allowed to sing church songs outside of church grounds, by the way.
You're not allowed to sing church songs outside
of church songs or church
you're not allowed
grounds. That's fine.
You're not allowed. She just said you're not allowed to sing church songs outside of church.
Outside of church grounds, unless you have
That's
you've
a load
been
of rubbish.
authorized by the church to do this kind of song.
Are you saying that you don't care about the Human Rights Act? You're lost?
Well, sorry about that not playing nicely, but you heard it. The audio played fine. What a winner. What a winner. Thankfully, the gospel singer did not get arrested, but she could have. Then you've got this guy, Graham Linehan, did the British TV sitcoms Father Ted and the It Crowd. He is not amused by the whole idea that trans women are women because they aren't, because they're men. And but he was working on a play. It was going to be a Father Ted play, and he's been blacklisted because men are not women. But he showed up a few months ago, flew over from Arizona. They had about 7 cops there to arrest him for hurting trans people's feelings. Yeah. I was at a restaurant this year, beginning of the school year. It may have been the beginning of the school year. Time flies when you're having fun. The wife and I went to see, along with one of her colleagues, Metallica in concert up in Seattle. Metallica's not really my thing, but the wife likes it, and her friend liked it, and it's like, okay, I'll go to the concert. I was most impressed by the spectacle, but we ate at a restaurant right along the coast there, just up the road from the stadium where the concert was taking place, and there was a trans woman who wasn't our main server, but was bringing drinks out and refilling drinks, that sort of thing. And friend said, "Thanks, dude," for something, because he's hearing the voice. The person's behind him. He has not turned around. He has not seen this person. Says thanks. So he said, "Thanks, dude," or "Thanks, man." Just like I could barely hold it in, because he got a look, and yeah, sorry, not putting up with that garbage. So, but this is the new reality in Great Britain. It's the new reality in a lot of Canada. I mean, this happens in Canada. This happens in Australia. You people are losing your minds. You're losing your freedom. And frankly, the reason why is they aren't scared of you. They aren't scared of you. UK free speech crackdown sees up to 30 people a day arrested for petty offenses such as retweets and cartoons. Here we have a screenshot of a security camera. 6 cops show up at Maxie Allen and Rosalind Levine's house in January to arrest the couple over messages they posted in a private WhatsApp group for parents at a local school. What were the messages? They were criticizing the hiring process and the hiring of the school's new principal. I think it's the head teachers, like they call it in Great Britain, but basically the principal. Private WhatsApp group got you arrested. Free Speech Union. Toby Young, his organization is helping half a dozen people. One of them includes David Wooten, 40, who is appealing a conviction for dressing up as the Manchester Arena bomber Salman Abedi for a Halloween party last year. He had posted images on social media showing him wearing an Arabic-style headdress and the slogan, "I love Ariana Grande" on his t-shirt and carrying a rucksack with "Boom" and TNT written on the front. He was arrested and admitted sending an offensive message online. He faces up to 2 years in prison for a admittedly tasteless Halloween costume. Tasteless. But you dress up like a terrorist and as a method of criticizing them, not as a method of praising them, as a method of criticizing them, and the British want to toss you in prison for 2 years. Again, 2 years. This is one of those charges that doesn't get you a jury trial. And I think, and when you get these overzealous prosecutions, the most powerful part of a jury trial is finding a juror, potentially, who says, no, this is just wrong. You're overstepping your bounds. And I'm going to nullify this whole prosecution. I'm going to vote not guilty because this is crazy. You don't have that chance of happening when it's a judge. When it's a judge who's so deep in that system and so and who can't see the forest for the trees. Here's a list of victims of free speech crackdown. These are a bunch of different people. You can take a look at this. I want to highlight a couple of them. You already see the second one over and on the bottom row. We've already shown her praying for praying outside of an abortion clinic. Top right, detained for using the wrong pronoun for a trans woman, for a man. She called a man a man. That one next to her, arrested over negative posts about his bosses online. You can't criticize your boss online. It might hurt their feelings. Want to highlight a couple of these. Julian Folks, detained over post warning of rising anti-Semitism. He is a former cop, 71-year-old retired special constable, detained over social media post warning about the threat of anti-Semitism in Britain. And if you go back to one of my earlier episodes, I'll try and put a link to it. They got an anti-Semitism problem in Great Britain too, because they've imported a bunch of Muslim/Arab/ terrorists. They've got a serious anti-Semitism program. An Israeli soccer team couldn't even have their supporters come to town not because they're worried about soccer hooligans from Tel Aviv. No, it's because they're worried that they can't control their own Arab population who likes to kill Israelis. Mr. Folks handcuffed at his home by 6 officers, 71 years old. They don't have guns in Great Britain anymore, ladies and gentlemen. They took away the right to carry, the right to keep and bear arms. They never had that. Written constitution is a very good thing. The guy's not armed. They know he's not armed. 6 cops sent to arrest him after challenging a supporter of pro-Palestinian marches on X. He mocked an account supporting the pro-Palestine protest, saying, "One step away from storming Heathrow looking for Jewish arrivals." His home was searched, devices seized. He was locked in a police cell for 8 hours in interrogated on suspicion of malicious communications. In May 2025, Kent police admitted the caution was a mistake and deleted it from his record. Well, again, the process is the punishment. the other one that I found particularly amusing. Rob Davies, Mr. Davies, 61, had put up a handwritten note in his shop following repeated thefts, which read, "Due to scumbag shoplifting, please ask for assistance to open the cabinets." But officers from North Wales Police attended his retro shop in Wrexham and told him to remove the sign as it could cause offense. Chris Philp, the Shadow Home Secretary, so this is the one who's out of power, said, "This is madness. Causing offense is not criminal and is none of the police's business. They should be catching shoplifters, not worrying about offending them. Frankly, shoplifters are scumbags. This woke, weak nonsense is a total waste of time." Yeah. You people are losing your ever-loving minds. It was a few months ago that J.D. Vance and Donald Trump were warning about free speech in Great Britain going the way of the dodo. For the younger people here, dodo is a bird that no longer exists because it went extinct. You got a problem. And then there's, finally, I think this is the penultimate one, there's this beauty. "We will come after you." Metropolitan Police Commissioner Sir Mark Rowley, London's top police chief, warned global social media users last week the British government could seek extradition of those who shared video footage of riots erupting across the United Kingdom. Speaking to Britain's Sky News, Rowley said anybody found to be promoting misinformation or inciting further riots in the country would face prosecution. Bring it on! Bring it on, you little... Yeah. You can't stop the riots. You've imported a population that is antithetical to the Great Britain of 70, 80 years ago. And you're going to hey, people in England, I'm going to promote misinformation. I'm going to say Mr. Rowley here, Sir Mark Rowley, is a stand-up guy. He's a great guy. That would be misinformation. I would have brown eyes because I would be full of excrement if I told that to you. Come and arrest me, Mr. Rowley. It wouldn't go very far. That's the problem we got nowadays, ladies and gentlemen. I'm not sure Great Britain can be saved. It would be nice if it could. Not sure it's possible. We shall see, though. Thanks for joining me today. I appreciate it. Again, please follow me on Substack, Hoystory on X, Facebook. It's all there. Thank you for joining me. Please tell your friends, tell your enemies, tell people you like, tell people you don't like. Spread it around. Thanks for watching. Leave a comment. You got questions or whatnot, leave those too. Might get around to answering them. For the record, those of you who've been watching a long time, I still have not gotten my $14,000 check from the Jews. So here's hoping. Again, thanks for joining me. Look forward to hearing from you soon, and hopefully another one tomorrow.